A woman is found in the belly of a python. In 2022, a 52-year-old woman in Terjangaja village, in Jambi, Indonesia, was killed by a snake. She went out to work on the rubber plantation, tapping the rubber sap. But when she did not return by dark, her family got worried. So they searched for her for a few hours, and when they couldn't find her, they reported her missing to the authorities. There was no sign of her for nearly 2 days. But then part of the search party discovered a large python in the jungle near the rubber plantation. It had a huge bulge in its body. Some of the men captured the snake and killed it. They cut open the python, and to their horror they saw the missing woman inside. Her body was still in one piece and had not been digested by the snake yet. It was measured at 20 feet, 6 meters, and was a reticulated python. A python kills a 16-year-old boy. In 2020, 5 teenagers were messing about and hiking in the woods, near a waterfall at Mount Kahar, in southeast Sulawesi, Indonesia. One of them, called Alfian, was walking ahead of the others. The other kids were then shocked when they heard him screaming for help. They ran to where they could hear his cries and were horrified at what they saw. A huge snake was wrapping itself around the boy's head and neck. It had already bitten Alfian on one of his thighs. One of them ran for help while the others tried to beat the snake off their friend. They managed to release its head from the boy, but the python then suddenly attacked and bit 2 of the teenagers as well. But they were not strong enough to release the boy. By the time villagers got to him, he was already dead. The python was measured at 23 foot, 7 meters, and had suffocated the boy. The men killed the snake using parang machetes. Seagull Rifka, also 16, was one of the friends who tried to save Alfian. But he was also bitten, he said. The head of the python was released, but then it turned to attack us. A man finds his brother being eaten by a snake. It was in 1995, and the man was 29-year-old, Hang Huan. He lived with his mother and brother in Malaysia. He had gone to the back of his house to start the generator to power his home. When he did not return, his brother went to look for him. He brought a light because the path was in darkness and was full of thick bushes. What he saw when he got to where the generator was horrified him. His brother had a python wrapped around his body, and had been squeezed to death. The snake already had his brother's head in its mouth, and was about to eat him. There was no way he could attempt to get the snake off his brother. So Hang Huan ran to the nearby police station for help. The police fired shots at the snake and it let go of the body and slid away. It tried to escape into the bush. But the snake was hunted and was then cornered by the policeman. It took 4 shots to kill it. Once it was killed, the man's body was recovered. The python was reported as measuring 22 feet, 7 meters long, and weighing more than 300 pounds, 140 kilograms. What a snake did to this 25-year-old man. Akbar Salubiro went missing on March 25, 2017. He was working on the island of Sulawesi, in Indonesia. When he did not return home, a search party went looking for him. 2 days later, they came across a python with a very large belly. They were shocked by this sight. They realized that Salubiro must have been eaten by the python. They cut open the belly of the snake and found Salubiro dead inside. The death of Akbar Salubiro was the first confirmed case of a reticulated python eating and killing an adult human. Eaten whole by a giant python. This is what this giant python did to this 54-year-old woman, Watiba, in 2018. This happened in a village on the island of Muna, in Indonesia. She had been working in her vegetable garden that day. But in the evening she did not return home. Her family went to the garden area to look for her, but all they could see were her sandals. Still hidden in the garden was a giant python. But it was lying there with a huge bulge in the middle of its body, so they killed it. And the body of Watiba was found intact in the belly of the snake. A 20-foot snake kills and eats a 10-year-old boy in front of his friends. It happened in 2002, near the township of Lamontville, Durban in South Africa. The child was playing with a group of his friends when the snake attacked him. The other children ran when they realized what was happening. They were in a horrified panic, but they managed to climb large mango trees to escape the snake. But this meant that they could also see what was happening to their friend. The python was wrapping itself around the child's body and killing him. Once the boy was dead, the snake then opened its mouth and began to swallow the child. The other children stayed up in the tree because they were terrified. It took about 3 hours before the python had swallowed the child whole. It was only when the kids saw that the snake had slithered away did they get down from the tree and get help. But the police and snake experts could not find any trace of the child or the snake. 11-year-old Kai Buthelezi was with his friend on that terrifying day. He said they were with a group of kids picking up fallen fruit and just messing around. Out of nowhere the snake appeared, and quickly wrapped itself around his friend's body, pinning his arms to his side. He told reporters that the snake squeezed tighter and tighter around his friend, until his eyes closed and his head fell back, so he thought he was dead. He also told them, and then the snake's mouth opened very, very wide, and it started to swallow him from the head down, his clothes and everything. It took about 3 hours because it was dark, when we saw it slither away and we finally came down from the trees. Experts stated that the snake had probably just woken from its winter hibernation and would have been extremely hungry. It was unfortunate that the kids happened to be in that spot when the python saw them. Pythons are non-venomous and their usual choice of prey includes monkeys, pigs, birds and other warm-blooded animals. A security guard catches a snake crossing the road, but it then strangles him to death. Mr. Ambar Mulyo was a 59-year-old security guard at a restaurant near a luxury hotel on the island of Bali Resort. The large python was crossing the road near the Bali Hyatt Hotel. He had offered to help capture the snake, which had been spotted several times before near the hotel. Mr. Mulyo was able to capture the snake by grabbing its head in one hand and its tail in his other. Onlookers were amazed at how easily he was able to do this. He lifted the python onto his shoulders and was enjoying the adulation from the crowds that had gathered. But suddenly the python was able to break its head free from the man's hand. It then quickly went on the attack and wrapped itself around his body and neck. Within a few short minutes the snake had killed Mr. Mulyo by strangling him to death. The crowds of people were too shocked to help him. The python escaped into nearby bushes unharmed. Zoo workers find a python trying to swallow a co-worker's head. An intern, Eric Arrieta, 29, was a biology student. He was working on the night shift at the Caracas Zoo in Venezuela. He was on his own in the reptile house. A 10-foot, 3 meters python had been donated to the zoo a few months beforehand. It had become too big for its owner to keep. It is not known why Mr. Arrieta broke the rules and allowed the snake out of its enclosure. When other workers entered the space they were horrified. The snake was in the process of swallowing the man's head. They beat the python to make it release his body. Mr. Arrieta had a bite on his wrist which showed that the snake had bitten him before crushing him to death. The African rock python is capable of eating large prey, including antelope and crocodiles. And from the account above, it can also eat a human body. Pythons are known for lying in wait for prey to pass them by, unaware of the danger, before striking. Pythons are found in tropical and subtropical regions of Africa, Asia, and Australia. The reticulated python is the longest snake species, often reaching lengths of over 20 feet. Pythons have stretchable jaws and skin, allowing them to swallow prey whole, even if it's larger than their head. After a large meal, pythons can go for weeks or sometimes months without eating. These snakes have specialized teeth that curve backward, and this helps them to grab and hold onto prey better. The green tree python is known for its unique way of resting on tree branches, by forming a loop with its body. Pythons are able to swallow their prey whole, because they have specialized muscles in their lower jaw that can move independently. These snakes kill by squeezing their prey until it can no longer breathe. This is because pythons have specialized muscles that they can use. They can detect warm-blooded prey in complete darkness, because they have heat-sensing pits on their faces. For more facts about animals, click on the subscribe button.